What up gamers, I'm SirMav and welcome to another Arsenal series video where I review and analyze the weapons of Battlefield 5. This week's Tides of War unlock is the Boys AT rifle, aka the elephant gun, and it packs a punch against the enemy infantry. But before we get into the usual analysis, let's first start off with the best way to unlock this weapon. Now if you have a squad or if you'd like to try with random players, feel free to enter Firestorm to unlock the new AT rifle, but honestly I like guarantees and Firestorm isn't the fastest way to do this. The best way that I found to unlock the AT rifle is to matchmake into the Tank Battles playlist, as you'll be needing vehicles for this week's task, and play as the Assault class. I'll explain why. And I will say that these following nodes will be easiest to unlock on Panzerstorm, as there are plenty of vehicles that rummage across this map. The first node on the path requires you and your squad to earn 1000 points by using a towable weapon or any civilian vehicles, so no tanks for this one. This node is rather straightforward. Simply jump on a towable AA gun around the map and you'll simply take out planes within the sky across the map or inflict damage on enemy infantry or tanks nearby. Once that node is unlocked, the next bottom 3 nodes may seem difficult, but if you're using the assault kit, it's possible to do it all in one go. First node is to disable the turret of an enemy tank. You'll want dynamite equipped for this one. For most tanks, it only takes 2 pieces of dynamite planted on the turret of an enemy tank and it will disable the tank's turret, unlocking the first node for you. Don't use anything else, as I found dynamite to be the most efficient way to disable the turret through my testing in the practice range. The second node is to disable the engine of one enemy tank. For this one, you'll want to have the Panzerfaust equipped. Simply shoot the back end of any enemy tank and you will disable its engine. This can also be done in one hit with the Piat as well. And the last node for this trifecta is to simply destroy an enemy tank. If you've already done the previous nodes, then you should have no trouble completing it with the same assault kit. Next on the list will be High Horse, where you will need to capture 3 objectives or resupply points in Firestorm while in a vehicle. I did this one with an armored truck, but your best bet would be to utilize a tank as you push into an enemy objective and fully capture it while in the objective area. Should be simple enough, but keep in mind that the enemy has to fully churn an objective point before your team can fully capture it, as it won't count if the enemy team never flipped the objective to their side. The last node is easiest, as a squad earn 3000 points by using vehicles or stationary weapons. If you and your squad are utilizing tanks and AA guns through the match, you should have no trouble unlocking this last node. Once the entire node path is complete, you'll have unlocked the new Boys AT rifle for the Recon Class. The Boys anti-tank rifle was an interesting weapon to say the least. Light tanks were prominent throughout the interwar years, so most nations produced these anti-tank weapons that utilize solid projectiles. But as armor quickly increased into World War II, the solid bullets had to be replaced with explosive rounds to make them more effective against these heavier armored tanks. This is where the Boys AT rifle came in. Beginning production in 1937, England created the Boys AT rifle to be effective against any upcoming light tanks being developed during the time. A fairly simple bolt-action design, this AT rifle housed a 5-round magazine and utilized 55 caliber rounds that rang out of the barrel at 2,640 feet per second. Still though, 55 calibers is a heavy round. The initial doctrine states that the rifle was effective at up to 500 yards, but as World War II came about, it was found that the max was 300 yards, but 100 was recommended. This also seems to be the case within Battlefield 5 gameplay, as after a certain distance, AT rifle seems very ineffective, but the main use of this weapon is not for pure damage. You'll be utilizing it more for infantry and light vehicles and tanks to disable engines and other parts of the vehicle in the game. One of the main complaints from soldiers utilizing this weapon was the recoil, and I will say that DICE nailed the animation to depict this recoil in real life. Despite having a muzzle brake, a recoil absorbing stock slide, and a heavy recoil pad at the butt of the stock, it still maintained a reputation of a punishing recoil. Other than that though, there's very little recorded on the weapon's effectiveness within World War II. But now that you know a little about this weapon's history, how does it actually play out within Battlefield 5? Well, I wasn't joking when I said this gun was a beast. You will send enemies flying at times when they get stuck with a bullet of this rifle. It took a bit to level up as it was bugged in the early hours of the patch, and as of yesterday the APCR rounds were bugged as well, so unfortunately couldn't test out how much additional damage the rifle does to enemy vehicles compared to its regular rounds. But infantry out to 100 meters? No problem. The Boys AT rifle has by far the slowest fire rate of all the weapons in Battlefield 5 at a meager 22 rounds per minute, but for good reason, as I'll get into here in a bit. You can increase that though to 26 with machine bolt, but still so meager it's not really worth it. It houses 5 rounds in the mag with a total of 30 rounds on your person and clocks in at a stock reload speed of 5 seconds, which can be reduced to 4.25 with the quick reload specialization. Now because this rifle was used against light tanks in actual war, you better bet your ass it packs a punch. This rifle is a one-shot kill on any part of the body up to in and around 80 meters. Once you go past that though, you'll need to hit the head as with any other sniper rifle, which makes this weapon an absolute killer in the right hands from a recon panning out across an objective. But once you fire off that first shot, your presence will be known due to its meaty and prominent bang that rings across the battlefield. After 100 meters, the damage drop-off seems to stay around the 75 mark all the way to 300 meters. And yes, you can hit these long shots with this rifle, but you'll definitely need the target standing still with this rifle's low velocity bullets. Against enemy vehicles, this weapon will hit anywhere from 1 to about as high as 14 damage against enemy tanks, more damage of course on the lighter tanks and vehicles, up and around 30 damage to regular transports. If you do happen to impact the engine though of enemy vehicles, you will apply significantly more damage, so aim for those weak points. Now with the specialization route, I chose to go mainly across the right side, except for the beginning when I equipped sling and swivels. The reason for this is because you can only ADS with the AT rifle when either prone or using the bipod against a les, just like the support class MMGs. So you'll be switching between your primary and secondary weapon quite often out on the battlefield. This might be the time to figure out which pistol you should be utilizing within Battlefield 5. Click the card above if you want to find out. After the first tier, then I go over to the right side with variable zeroing, equip the quick reload so I can get back in the action faster, and then the last is mainly because the APCR rounds are currently bugged. The rounds could in fact be very useful against enemy vehicles, but unfortunately I'm unable to test this at this time due to the bug. So instead I chose the high velocity rounds on the right side, as the boy's AT rifle has a very slow bullet velocity to start with. But like I said, if you can hit your shots, this is one beast of a weapon in the right hands. As this weapon is currently one of a kind in Battlefield 5, there will be no graph chart within this video. Plus, recon-based weapons are more about maintaining accuracy than firing off as fast as possible to maintain maximum DPS or burst damage. So practice definitely makes perfect with this gun. And that pretty much wraps it up for the boy's AT rifle. Along with this new recon weapon, we also acquired a ton of quality of life changes within this latest patch. First off, you can now grab any heals or ammo pouches off of any medic or support player with the medic or ammo crate equipped. The medic crate also now heals nearby friendlies within a 2-meter radius, but keep in mind that the effect is interrupted when taking any damage or being suppressed by the enemy. This is the first iteration of this change, so be sure to submit your feedback to the developers through the proper channels. You can also now manually lean around corners in Battlefield 5, which I think is a phenomenal feature. To do so, simply aim down sight and while strafing to the right or left, tap down on the right joystick for console players, and for PC players this is defaulted to the F key. Keep in mind that leaning is only available when aiming down sight, and moving while leaning is 50% slower than normal. The last quality of life improvement I wanted to cover was the change in the lighting on soldiers within the maps. As we all know, visibility has been a concern since the launch of Battlefield 5. The developers finally addressed this within this week's patch by adding somewhat of a lighted shader on enemy soldiers, making them more visible within darker areas of the map. Devastation itself has been the main culprit of visibility issues in dark areas, so looking back on the gameplay from yesterday, the visibility has been much improved. Being able to spot soldiers within dark corners of the map helped immensely in getting a beat on them from a distance and in entering objective points. Definitely makes enemy players trying to hide in darker areas much easier to see. Me personally, I'm more trained my eye to look for any little bit of movement, so that's what I'm mainly looking for when I'm scoped in or traversing the battlefield. You don't know how many times I've spotted enemies in my peripherals just because of a slight movement. Still, I'm definitely glad to see this change in the game though. And last thing I wanted to cover was that there was a few weapon tweaks that the team made, specifically more for the Commando Carbine. Now the patch notes stated that the 2-hit kill range for this weapon was increased to the 50-meter mark, but after testing this doesn't seem to be the case. The damage was indeed increased a tad bit, but still not to the extent to what the patch notes stated. Muzzle velocity definitely seems improved and a bit faster, so the gun is definitely a much more viable choice than it was previously. But if you want to take a look at the full patch notes in all their entirety, you can find them in the link down below. If you're curious about any other weapons in Battlefield 5, be sure to check out the rest of the Arsenal series videos within the playlist. The more detailed information on weapons can be found through the link to my analysis sheet in the description box below as well. But that's it for today, gamers. Let me know your thoughts on the new AT rifle once you have it unlocked, and if you have any feedback on the new update, let me know down in the comments below. And that's it for today, gamers. As always, if you found this video helpful, give it a like and tap fire subscribe for all the latest weapon updates for Battlefield 5 and other gaming content. But until next time, gamers, this is SirMav, signing off.